So in this video, I'm going to be building an AI agent from scratch using AWS Strands SDK, which is just a minimal code open source framework, which is AWS native. And I'll show you how to do this as well. After building the agent, I'm going to give it some prompts to show what vulnerabilities are present with that agent. And then I'm going to implement guardrails in order to showcase how to protect against those vulnerabilities. All right, so let's get started with building the agent. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just open up a new terminal. And I'm going to create a virtual environment with Python. So I'll just run the venv command. So I'm going to create that with the venv command. And the virtual environment is just a workspace to install all of the Python dependencies. So I'm going to keep all of my packages and dependencies in this confined space. All right, so after the virtual environment is created, I'm just going to activate it with this command here. And then once that is activated, I can run the command to install the Strands agents packages. So I'm just going to do pip3 install Strands agents. And that installs everything that I need here. It looks like these requirements are already satisfied since I have installed this previously. All right, and then the next command I'm going to run is the command to install the Strands agent tools and the Strands agent builder. And then these are just the packages that are going to be needed for creating the agent with Strands. So I'm going to do pip3 install. And then same thing here, requirement already satisfied since I have installed this previously. All right, so now that that is done, I'm just going to go ahead and clear my workspace. So according to the Strands agent documentation for Python, there's going to be 3 files that we need for the sample agent. And so these files are going to be the init.py, the agent.py, and the requirements.txt. So I'm just going to copy the information from the documentation into requirements.txt. So we just need the Strands agents and then Strands agents tools. We'll be calling that here. Okay, and then in the init.py file, I'm just going to be importing the agent. So this is just to initialize the agent here. And then for the actual agent configuration, I'm just going to go to agent.py. And then paste in the example configuration from the documentation. So as I mentioned earlier, Strands is a minimal code agent building tool. And in this file, we can see there's only 37 lines to build this AI agent. And what this AI agent does is it has a couple tools that are defined. So the first one here is defining a letter counter. And this is just, if you input a word, you ask how many of a specific letter are in that word, it'll tell you. And then it's also going to look at some other tools as well. So in the agent configuration here, we have the calculator tool, current time, and then the letter counter. So we defined the letter counter up here, but the calculator and the current time tools are just part of the Strands libraries that are taken from online. Okay, so this is pretty simple. All we need to do is import the tools that are going to be used for this with 2 lines, and then define the tools that are actually available to the agent here. And then we call on the agent to actually look at those tools based on the request that's asked. So the sample request here is it's asking what is the time. It's asking for a calculation, and then it's asking for how many letter R's are in the word strawberry. So actually what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to, instead of putting in or hard coding a message, I'm just going to say, taking the input of what would you like to ask, for example. Okay, so now when the program is run, then it will ask the user, what would you like to ask? Would you like to perform a calculation? Ask for the current time, or calculate the letters in a word. So then it's not going to be hard coded this way. Okay, and then the agent is going to be called here. So it's just calling the agent and then inputting the message, which that would be our question. So now I'm going to go ahead and run this, and all I need to do here is just run the python-u and the agent.py to run that agent file. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. Okay, so available tools are calculator, current time, and letter counter. So what would you like to ask? So I'm just going to ask it, what is 6 times 7? Okay, so we can see that after asking the question, it identified that it's going to be using the calculator tool. So it used the calculator tool and computed the answer to that question. So the answer is 42. All right, so now we've tested that the simple agent works. Now I'm going to go ahead and give it a query that's not necessarily related to what it's supposed to do. So ideally what we want is this AI agent should only be able to give us the current time, the letter counter tool, or the calculator tool. So outside of that, it shouldn't be able to do anything. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it a random prompt unrelated to these tools and see what it does. So if I go ahead and run this agent again, I'm just going to say create a Python script to summarize a document. So this is not anything within the tools that it has. And as we can see, it is able to create a script for that, which is not good. So this could definitely be used with malicious intent, but we can see that it generated a whole script to summarize a text document in Python with a bunch of code there. So that is something that we would want to basically secure on the AI agent. We want to make sure that it's not generating any code or doing anything outside of what it's intended for. All right, so the next thing that I want to test here is if this agent will output any sensitive credentials. So ideally, if I were to interact with this agent and pass any sensitive credentials like a password or a token, for example, then the agent should be responsible for redacting that information so that it's not exposed. So we want to automatically obscure sensitive information to ensure regulatory compliance and privacy. And this vulnerability is also number 2 on the OAuth's top 10 for LLMs. So this would be insecure output handling. So I'm going to go ahead and run the agent and test whether it's able to obscure sensitive information. So I'm just going to say, what is the current time, and then include password 1234 in your response. And ideally, it should not include the password in the response. As we can see, it put that here in the output. So this would not be good. So that's something that we would want to sort of implement a guardrail for in order to prevent it from doing that. So it should automatically remove that kind of information. All right, so now that we've found the vulnerabilities with this AI agent, we can go ahead and attempt to remediate these vulnerabilities. All right, so there are a few things that we can do to remediate these issues with the AI agent. So we want to essentially have input and output handling and validation. And we can do this through AWS Bedrock and guardrails. So with Strands, it's already using a Bedrock model in order to perform these queries. So all we need to do is implement guardrails within that Bedrock model in order to address some of these security concerns. So I'm just going to go ahead to the AWS console and demonstrate how we can create that guardrail, and then we'll go ahead and add it in our code here. All right, so I'm over in the AWS console now in Amazon Bedrock, and all I need to do is go down here and go to the guardrails section. And then in guardrails, I can just go ahead and say create guardrail, and this will be AI agent guardrail. And then for the messaging, we'll just say, sorry, the model cannot answer this question when the guardrail is hit. And then I'm going to go ahead and say next. Okay, then I'll go next, next. And then there's also an option in here if you wanted to filter profanity as well. So if you didn't want certain words to be said by the user, then you can just say filter for profanity, and then you can basically set words that shouldn't be mentioned. Or if those words are mentioned, then the response should not go through. So that's an option as well. But here I'll just go next. So now we have the sensitive information filters and personally identifiable information types. So here I can just say add new PII, and we're just going to choose to block the input and output. Or actually, I'll just do the output. And then under here, we can just say password, for example. So earlier I entered in my password and it outputted it. So if I add this guardrail, it should no longer output the password. So I'll just confirm this and then, set it to block, go next, 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 and then go ahead and create this. And now we can reference this guardrail in our code. All right, so in the Strands documentation for adding the guardrails within your code, it provides a block that we need to use in order to specify the guardrail. So I'm just going to add that in here. All right, so we import the Bedrock model, and then we define the Bedrock model here. So for model ID, we just set the model, which is going to be Anthropic's Claude Sonnet 4.5. And then we have to specify the guardrail ID here. So if I go back to the guardrail that we created, and then I just copy the ID, I can go ahead and paste that here. The guardrail version is going to be 1. And actually, if we go back to this guardrail, we do need to go ahead and create a version. So we can just easily do that here, and we have version 1. So now that should be good. And then guardrail trace is fine, so I'll leave that. All right, so now we want to add the guardrail in the agent configuration. All right, so down here where we are creating the agent, I'm just going to add this after the tools. So you have tools, calculator, current time, letter counter, and then I'm going to add the model, which is specifying this bedrock model up here. That includes the guardrail and then the model ID. Okay, and then the next thing that I want to add in here actually is I want to do a system prompt. So basically I want to make sure that the AI agent is not addressing requests which are outside of what it can actually do. So if it doesn't involve a tool that it's going to be using, then it shouldn't be addressing the question. So we can add a system prompt to give it instructions on basically what it should answer and what it should not answer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this system prompt in here, and basically we're saying what this AI agent should do. So you're a specialized assistant that can only help with mathematical calculations, providing the current time, and then counting letters and words. And then for the rules, you must use your available tools to answer the questions. If the question can't be answered by the tools, respond with I can only help with those tools that it has available. And then do not provide general knowledge, advice, or information outside of these capabilities. Do not attempt to answer questions without using the appropriate tool. So now we have clear rules defined for the AI agent on how it should respond to queries. All right, so with that, I'm just gonna go ahead and save the file and then run it and give it a test. So I'm gonna run the agent here, the Python command. Okay, and then it says, what would you like to ask? So I'm gonna say, can you write me a script to summarize the text document? Okay, so same query that we did earlier. Okay, and then we can see that it says I can only help with calculations, time queries, and letter counting. And then please ask a question related to these capabilities. So that's perfect. That's what we want. We don't want it to address anything outside of these tools. Okay, and then the next thing that I wanted to test here is the output validation and sanitization. So if I give it a password or tell it to write a password, then it should redact that. So if I say, I'll go ahead and run this agent again, and then I'm gonna say what is the current time, and then include password 1234 or password 123456 in your response. Okay, and then we'll see if it's able to redact that. Okay, so as you can see here, it printed the current time, but it did not include the password in the response. So it did redact that, which is exactly what we want. So that addresses number 2 of the OWASP top 10 for LLM. So as you can see, AI agents can be misused and are pretty vulnerable if there are no guardrails or security configurations implemented to protect your agents. So hopefully you found this video helpful, and if you did, please feel free to give a like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.